Cool. Well, do you want to dive in or you want me to?
You can. That's good.
Yeah, I think Maddie and I knew we wanted to do a live, and one of the things that came to mind for me, like right away with both of us, is we both have like pretty decent followings over on TikTok, and I feel like we both get a lot of comments on our bodies, and that can be something where I think to an average person, or even, every once in a while for us, can really start to get to you. So I was like, let's talk about body confidence and how we can really start to focus on that and build confidence within ourselves. I think it's interesting too, because we probably get like kind of different comments. Like I personally get a lot of comments of like, you looked better before you lost weight, or like you're too skinny. And like, I think that I know you got a lot of comments like through your bulk, which you can talk about. And it's like one of those things where it's just like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Like,
Yeah, I got a lot of good ones during my bulk, like, which I can kind of agree with, because bulk's like, it's not a one size fits all, situation. And people are like, oh, you went too far. Or a lot of guys on that end saying like, oh, you're just fat now. Or after my bulk and I've cut and it's like, oh, you're still fat. Those are fun ones too. But yeah, we really want to talk about this because I think from the women that we work with, a lot of it comes down to as well of like confidence, and they're still striving for that confidence and feeling good in their skin, even when they've reached their quote unquote goal weight or quote unquote goal, I almost said shirt size, pant size, whatever. So it's really instilling, it's like much more than a number on the scale and, a size. And I think that's super important to talk about.
Yeah. And I think probably you see this as well. A lot of the women who do choose to sign up for coaching and kind of go about it in the right way start to realize that confidence doesn't come from the number on the scale. They're like, yeah, the scale hasn't moved, but I have energy again, and like I'm less bloated and I feel really good. And they start to build that body confidence without actually having to lose weight.
Right. And probably before we go any further, we should say who we are. So my followers know who you are, so go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Justine. I am a health and fitness coach as well. I work with a lot of women like 25 to 35. I recently got divorced last year, so I'll be honest, like that's a big part of what I speak on in terms of finding that, like I was in a very abusive relationship and a relationship that really tore me down. So speaking a lot to women who are like finding themselves again and like being in their 30s and really leaning into their sexuality and getting to just like feel really confident when maybe you've gone through something kind of hard. I also have a podcast called Villain Era, because again, we're going through that villain era. So if you want to tune in there, that's super fun. And yeah, I live in Austin, but that's about it. Want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Maddie Martinez, recently married, just went on a honeymoon, and I help women get super strong. I used to focus a lot on, weight loss, and I loved helping with that, but I find a lot more, you could say, empowerment through my work with helping women get super strong, build a strong body, and build confidence, and not just seeing themselves shrink down, because there's a lot more that we could do than just that. I've kind of been through all the stages of fitness to where I was, super disciplined and I was like this big and it was never enough, to where now I just want to get stronger and be healthier for life.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. So would you say that you have always had like body confidence?
No, not at all. I feel like most women would say no, and for sure for me, like not at all. Not at
Yeah. I will say I think I was kind of lucky in how I grew up in terms of like, I always think now, like, actually, I know both of us are kind of anti-children,
Yep.
but I do plan on being like an aunt and stuff. And I always think like, what did my parents do that like as a kid, I really didn't have like confidence issues. It wasn't something I thought about. And I feel like it wasn't something I really thought about until like I kind of got into my 30s. And like I was really like in that corporate grind and like putting myself to the side so much and putting myself into relationships where it's like, ooh, I kind of hit like a rock bottom there. And that's when I was like, okay, we have to get back to building confidence for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a super, I wouldn't say like my mom wasn't the type of mom to nitpick her body, and she did a really good job of that. I don't even think she realized she was doing that. I think it was just the way that she grew up and knew she didn't want that for us. But I grew up with a older, and at the time, cuter, you could say better looking, but we were children, sister, and I was kind of like the one that was, we were 22 months apart, and so we looked like twins, except I was a little bit taller and I had a bigger belly. And I remember I had a family member say to me not that long ago, maybe a couple years now, that when I was younger, I would ask her, like, why is my belly so big? Because I was just, a chubby kid. And it's crazy. I was probably like, I don't know, 6 or 7. So I was self-conscious from a young age. Even my grandpa would make fun of me and I would cry and he'd be like, oh, stop. You're just chubby, and my sister was the small little one. So I think I've always dealt with that. And going into high school, I had a really, really rough time with body dysmorphia and disordered eating patterns. But I was never officially diagnosed, but I definitely went through the ringer with that. And it wasn't until probably, I would say maybe like a good 5, 6 years ago, to where I kind of came into myself and finally grew that confidence. But it definitely had a lot of periods where my confidence was based on how big my thigh gap was. My confidence was based on how small was I wearing a double extra small, like my sister who's 5 foot tall and I'm 5'5". Those two things should not have been happening, but my journey was definitely not one that was like simple, for that matter.
Yeah. So how did like fitness kind of help that? And when do you feel like you kind of like made that turn of worrying about being like smaller and smaller and like moving to like realizing I feel more confident when I just feel stronger?
I would love to say like when I got into lifting weights, I was like, oh, this is so much better. But I think, and a lot of women I've seen this, where they start lifting weights and then you get addicted to how lean you can get. I definitely went through that. And I ended up getting myself, why am I blanking on it? Like female triads. So I was so lean that my menstrual cycle was like, it vanished. It was like, we don't need that.
Yeah.
You're too lean. And I had numerous years where I was like at that level. So I can't say, oh, I, started lifting weights and that's when it went away. It probably got worse for a time period because I didn't have a good role model. I didn't know what I was doing. And I just thought being leaner and having a six-pack was going to give me, all the confidence and the health perks I needed. But when in reality, it was like the complete opposite. So it probably wasn't until I got super sick with my autoimmune disease and gained all of the weight plus more, couldn't walk, all those things, and then got healthier after that. I think that's when I finally was like, oh, this feels really good. Like I can walk again and I feel healthy in my skin. So it definitely took a long time and like maybe 2 or 3 phases into being into fitness.
I think that's so important to hit on because especially people want to jump into fitness and do like a 90-day program or something like this. But both of us, we have these like very long fitness stories. So when about 5 years ago, I moved to Miami, and that was probably like the lowest of my low in terms of like body confidence, because it was like the middle of the winter. I had just done 2 weeks in Europe, and then it was the holidays, and I was at the heaviest of my life. And then I moved to Miami where I'm in a bathing suit year round. Oh. And also, if you've ever been to Miami, like everyone's gorgeous. And I was like, I don't feel like myself anymore. And similar to you, that's when I kind of hired a coach. I got super lean and I thought like, this was the key, this is it. And then when I started to learn, I'm like, I only poop once a week. Like I have terrible skin. I'm like, I can't make it through the day without taking a nap. And then it's like, I actually went through a really more functional approach. And that's when learning about health and how like, okay, no, I'm going to start focusing on my health first, really built that confidence where it's like, no, it's not about having abs anymore. And actually this, like a month ago, I was like, oh, I'm going to do a mini cut because like I'm single again and I like want abs. And I'm like, no, I don't. They're not worth it.
It's funny because even when, I feel like I've had a lot of growth mentally, internally, all those things. And then little things like that, can kind of pull you back for a second. Like to old behaviors, and you really have to like catch yourself and like, no, like I am beyond that. Not to say like wanting to have abs is a bad thing. Like you're definitely allowed to, but I don't think people understand the diligence and the restriction you need to have very visible abs like
Yeah.
all year. It's intense, and a lot of people just can't hold that level of intensity.
One of the things I really usually highlight with my clients though is sometimes if they have a check-in and they're like, I just like didn't like my pictures this week. And I'm like, let's get clear on this. Like this week, last week, your pictures are totally the same. Like, but what did you do for yourself this week? Because I think a lot of times you'll notice it'd be like, oh, like I had a birthday party and like I don't like the choices I made and I skipped my workouts. And like ultimately that lack of like confidence in the way we're picking our body apart really comes down to not keeping the promises that we make to ourselves. Like that's one of my favorite quotes is that confident people make promises to themselves and they keep it. And when we start with those small goals, right, we start with like, let's hit steps, let's hit water. Like those are those little things that start to build confidence. And that's usually affecting how we feel about our body way more than what our body actually looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, the only way you're going to make progress on your journey is building confidence and hitting things over and over and over, like the small wins. And kind of something I was talking about with Allie like a couple weeks ago when she asked, like, why, how do I feel like if I go somewhere, we're talking about alcohol, and I just don't drink because I don't drink. And I was like, I am very confident in like the values and choices that I make. So someone can't quote unquote shame me into wanting to have a drink because it doesn't exist for me. I just don't drink. So you can't be
Yeah.
like, oh, Maddie, come on, loosen up. Like it doesn't exist for me. So if you can foster that confidence in your body, which we're going to talk on a lot probably later about how the comments that we get, like those things don't affect me as much as they used to because I don't value people's opinions that really don't mean anything about me in that sense.
Yes. I think that's so true. I mean, I do drink, but like, especially when we get around the holidays and people will be talking about like, oh, I just feel guilty that I have to try this food someone made, or like people will be like, no, don't you want like another cookie? I'm like, that doesn't bother me. Like, one, I think that I live my life in a way that I have portrayed like, nutrition is important to me. What I put into my body is important to me. So like people don't really put that pressure on me. Obviously, if you're newer into your journey, they might not be used to it, but also that's what I'm like, I don't care if you're upset that I won't try your like cookie. Like that's my like I feel so confident in my choices of like what's right for my body and what to put in it. Yeah, and then oh gosh, you hit on something else really good that I want to come back to. I have to think about it.
the
What?
the comments that people make, that type of thing.
Yeah. Oh, yes. So I think one of the things that I always remember is that we tend to like comments when we like truly don't believe in a comment, it doesn't get to us, right? Like if someone, but when you let a comment get to you, I think a lot of times you find that those are things that are deep down maybe a little bit of an insecurity for you. So I will say sometimes I do feel a little insecure that I'm like, I'm a fitness coach and like I'm not more jacked. So like
that one.
Like I'm
Yes.
a fitness coach and like I don't have like a perfect like bubble butt. Or like honestly I'll say like one of my biggest insecurities is like my teeth aren't perfectly straight. So it's like if someone comments on like that might get to me a little bit. Versus if someone is really like sitting there like, you don't look good, you looked better before, like like those are the kind of things where I'm like, I know so truly like to those aren't true, so they don't get to me.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, people like to comment on their own insecurities and highlight that in you. So that's something I think we always have to keep in mind. But definitely when I was going through my last bulking phase, and like I gained a good amount of weight, but I really needed to because I was kind of like not being able to gain the muscle I've been wanting to gain for a long time. So it was like, I gotta do it now. I got a lot of comments like, oh, you're just all fat now, or, I'm not going to take you serious because, how are you a fitness coach, or why would I take advice from you? And like on the same other side of it, like you said, I've had that fear of like, oh, I'm not like super jacked. Like, why is anyone gonna believe me? You know, and I even had like a former, who wasn't a coach per se, but someone that was working with me for nutrition say like, oh, they'll take you more serious now after this bulk because you'll be stronger. You'll look more jacked. And I was kind of like, I never thought about it that much until like honestly right now, when you said that, because I'm like, I believed that, and also like it was it was someone that was helping me in a coaching perspective, and that they said that too, and I was kind of like interesting because it could be his own insecurity, whatever it was, but I kind of believed that for a while as well, and I think that holds us back from like wanting to be a coach, or where people feel like they can't be a coach because they are heavier or they have weight to lose, and I think that's obviously that shouldn't hold you back, but these are things I think we all think about, and worry that people are going to judge us for if we are in this space.
Yeah. And ultimately, I think also we both work with very like just like normal women. Like neither of us are working with specializing in like bikini competitors or stuff.
So,
So I think it's really important if you are like a normal woman who's like going to a corporate job every day, that signing up for a coach who does look like a bikini competitor and does do that type of thing. I'm not saying that they won't be like, I'm not saying they'll be terrible, but you have to say like, is that the right fit for me, right? Are their protocols going to be more strict? Are their protocols going to lean towards things that a competitor is doing versus being realistic of like, nah, like I am just a girl living my best life and, wanting to feel healthy and good in her body without going to the extremes of fitness that we could go to.
yeah, like that, like hiring a bikini body coach would never be something that I would do, because I know from my own past history, I am a very addictive personality and very like structure, like I thrive off that. So if I were for some reason wanting to get into that, it would be a downward slope for me into back to really bad body dysmorphia and disordered eating patterns. Not necessarily an eating disorder, but just going down that route. And that's not something that I've worked so hard to get to, where I'm past that to go right back into it.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that you pick someone that's like more aligned to like what type of life that you want to live.
Absolutely. Is there anything that like maybe you do if you are having kind of like a bad body image day to get you out of it?
I really agree with, if you put on an outfit that you feel really good in, like it changes it completely. Like I have like a crop and like just some sweatpants on, but if I was like having a bad body image day, I'd probably wear leggings that like just like don't make me look like homeless, and things that like just fit better, or things that accentuate things that I like really like my butt or my shoulders, things like that. That's what I do, but or I just try to, if I'm having a bad day as well, like not doing body checks. And that's something I feel like, I don't know if it was like the Pinterest era that we all looked up stuff like that, but like body checks is something I really try not to do.
Yeah, that's so true. I will say one of the things, like, I'm probably not doing this on the days that I am having bad, I thought I'm already feeling bad, but I'm gonna get a little spicy here. I have been really into like taking like sexy photos of myself, and like I'm single. I don't have anyone to send them to. Like they just sit on my phone. But like it's one of those things that has been like building my confidence. I'm like, yeah, I'm
Mhm.
33. Like I am, that's part sometimes I'm like, gosh, I'm 33, I'm single. I'm like, no, I'm 33, I'm single. Because I think people say all the time, like, you'll never be as young and hot as you are like right now. Like you say that when you're like 22, and I'm like, no, like I'm not as young, but I'm way hotter and I'm way more of a catch, and it like reminds me
Uh-huh.
of like, no, you're feeling good, girl. And then I think too as well, it's kind of like just checking with myself, like if I'm having a bad body image day, I'm like, have I been eating the way I know makes me feel good? Not even like
Mm-hmm.
have I been hitting my macros or anything, but like have I been choosing foods that make me feel good? Have I
Mm-hmm.
gone on a walk lately? Like doing those things that just kind of like get you back in touch with just like feeling your body versus like looking at your body.
Mm-hmm. And I think being in the fitness world is such a part of our identity, to like how we look and like what we do. And sometimes I think just like getting out of that perspective of that and doing other things. Like I'm going to do something that like completely takes my mind off of it. And I've been getting a lot more into reading again and trying to get back into like more artsy things because I tend to just like fixate on like health, fitness, or like what are my meals like? Am I getting my walks and all those things? And I think taking your mindset out of that just kind of opens your eyes like, oh, there are other things besides just eating fruits and veggies and drinking my water. Other things I can do that are going to make me feel good about myself that aren't in the health and fitness space.
Yeah. So how do you ignore the haters when you get all the comments? What do you do?
I actually really haven't been like a blocking type person. I just kind of like, it's not that I want those comments to live there, but it's not something I have really practiced yet because I haven't let it like fully bothered me. If it
Mm-hmm.
really bothered me and like made me like really infuriated, maybe I would probably delete it. But I haven't deleted really any yet just because it hasn't truly affected me yet. The only one I would say that probably bothered me the most was a woman, and I think she meant it in like a very kind way, but she said something along the lines of like, "Oh, I love how you look because it's just so approachable to like what I really want to get to, or you're just like us." And I was just like, "Man, I'm really trying to look jacked, and I'm just like super approachable," you know? I was like, "Damn it." But I know she didn't mean it in a mean way, but it was just like my ego, like I want to look more jacked type
Yeah.
situation.
Uh,
But some of them, oh, sorry,
no,
go
go
ahead.
on.
I was gonna say some of them, like with the comments that guys make, I will just like, someone said one time, like, man, like anyone here or anyone can just give fitness advice. And I'll just like play back at them because I think it's funny and it's not something I'm letting get under my skin completely.
So I am a blocker for sure. I'm like, nope, bye if you're rude. Especially too, and then I'll say it kind of depends on my mood. Because a lot
Mhm,
of times, for women especially, that's like the things that piss me off. Is like, as a woman, how are you going to come in here as another woman and leave comments? Like, those are the ones
mhm,
that I'm just like, we got to be better than this in 2023. But I do love to give like if they say something rude, I'll just like, I hope you have a great day. Like, I hope your
mhm,
day gets better
mhm.
because I think it's really important to remember that if someone is bringing you down, if someone is commenting something negative, no one who is doing better than you, who is happy in their life, like they're
Exactly.
not doing that.
Nope.
No one is leaving comments like that who's just like crushing their life.
Yeah, they have to be in such a bad position to write something mean. And because for them, writing something mean, it's like boosting them up in a way, which obviously is like really pathetic. So that's why part of the time I'm just like, I'll leave that comment there. And I think sometimes maybe I don't know if this is like really true, but like I think it's for me at least, other women, if they see I have comments on there that are mean, it's kind of like, oh, like they get them too. You know, not that that's like maybe a positive thing, but like everyone gets it to an extent because there's a lot of crappy people out there that just feel like they need to bring people down to lift themselves up when that's truly not the case.
Yeah. And it's not even like it will never lift them up. It's just like, can I bring them down to my level? Like, can I make
Right.
them feel as shitty as I feel? Which is really sad. So, what would you say, like, what would be like your biggest tips for someone who's maybe struggling with their confidence right now or like their body image?
I would say you need to find something, whether it's with, hopefully, is with some type of fitness or the way you're treating yourself or talking to yourself, and stick with it and just constantly work on it. Because if you're telling yourself every time you see yourself in the mirror, like, I hate everything about you, you're going to continue to hate your body. So whether it's like, look in the mirror, like, oh, I really like my hair today, or like how this outfit looks, just saying something positively to yourself continually is going to make you start thinking that way. So really for like the mindset part, you need to start there.
Yeah. We don't, as women, it's like we would never say these things to our best friends, like the things we say to ourselves.
Mm-hmm,
So why do we say them
mm-hmm,
to each other? Like we have to be our ultimate best
mm-hmm,
friend first, you know, like you would never be like looking like just like point at your best friend and be like, oh, gross or something like that. But we are so fine to talk to ourselves that way. Um, yeah, and I think just like starting with really small like habits, right? And I think it gets tricky here when we talk about taking care of our body because so many people want to go straight to weight loss, but that's not what it's about at all. It's just like honoring your body. Like it doesn't
yeah,
matter if there's weight loss or not, but we know that our body feels better, you know, when we're not treating it like a dumpster. And
yeah,
it's like what's like that small thing, even if it's just like, hey, I'm gonna like drink another like one more glass of water today. or like I'm just going to try and get outside during lunch for like 10 minutes. Like finding those really small things, and then you start to become this new person who
Hmm.
constantly does these things, and you're like, yeah, I'm like, I'm confident because I know I'm going to show up for myself.
Hmm. Yeah, you can't expect to treat your body like a dumpster and then feel good after that. I mean, just like I think back, like in high school when you're giving tons of presentations, you don't dress like a hobo and come up disheveled to school, right? You dress technically to like impress and feel good and like while you're presenting. So it's the same thing. Like you want to feel good in your body, you should start presenting that way. It doesn't have to be anything extreme, and just like the small habits, like one by one, adding them in, and then telling yourself like, "Hey, you look good today." Something small, I think that really works.
Yeah, I'm a big like affirmation person. I think speaking it and like putting it into the universe and like actually like saying the words
Hmm.
feels really powerful.
I like that too. And then like the story you're telling yourself. So if you're always telling yourself, I have zero confidence, you're never gonna have confidence. But if you're telling yourself like I feel a little bit better today, this feels good, that feels good, you will start believing that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Anything
That's
else
good.
you want to hit on?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe just like if you get comments from people, which I think for like the normal person, you probably get comments from family members. Just remember it's just their insecurities and that, people feel too comfortable saying like the first thought they have about your appearance. Like it truly doesn't mean anything about you, and just to remember that.
Yeah, and I think that's also a really great opportunity to practice kind of setting boundaries,
Hmm.
making sure that they understand like it's not okay for you to comment on my body and just say that or speak how you're feeling with that. And also I think it's always important to remember that we would never take advice from someone who like isn't where we want to be, right?
Yeah.
So if you're sitting there with a family member who has not been what you've been through, has not done the things that you like are trying to do, why would we listen to their advice anyway?
Yeah. Would you ask someone for advice on, I don't know, how to save for retirement or become a millionaire and they're like 50,000 in debt? Probably not.
It's like I'm always like, no one should be asking me for like makeup advice. Like, please
Same.
don't ask me for that. So then when I see like influencers who are like 21 and they give all of this makeup and get ready with me, and then people are like,
Oh,
"Oh, what's your routine?" And I'm like, "Okay, no, like her routine is to go party." And like she's just lucky that like she's sticking with it right now. Please don't follow this routine. Like that's not who we should be asking for health and fitness advice. Just like don't ask me for, like makeup advice.
right, right. And I just saw this is maybe a couple months ago, but Alex Earl, I'm sure a lot of the younger girls know her. I'm sure she got paid a boatload. And I'm always like, get that bag, good job. But she did a sponsorship with Bloom, right? Bloom, that like everyone's like putting it the green
Everyone
powder.
does bloom,
Yes.
yeah.
And she did a sponsorship with them, and everyone thinks, oh, that's how I look like Alex Earl or get her figure. No, she's just really gifted, genetically gifted at this moment in time because I'm sure her lifestyle is probably trash.
Yes.
Party, so it's stuff like that. Like, don't go for advice from people that have no idea what they're doing.
Well, I think any kind of like that should be like a red flag in terms of like you see bloom, you see collagen a lot, you see like different like I don't know, different supplements that influencers are recommending.
Hmm.
And I'm like, have you ever seen a actual like fitness coach? Have you ever seen a registered dietitian? Have you ever seen like a doctor, like anyone like that? Be like, you should take bloom. No, like
Right, right. No.
it's just like influencers suggesting these types of things. Like that should be a red flag.
Right. It's a very low barrier entry for to show those things. And for us, like I've never shown a greens powder on here like ever. I've never shown like really only like my protein powder or like random stuff I try and I'm like, this is good, not really good. Like you really don't need it. So I think if you're gonna look for stuff that you need to try, you need to look at an actual
Yeah.
coach.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like my supplement regimen is so basic. It's like zinc, magnesium, fish oil, protein powder, creatine, like nothing
Yeah.
crazy at all that you need to be adding into your life. And also all of that is like based off of, specific symptoms and blood work that I have,
Hmm.
so it's like, that doesn't mean whatever I just said, please, outside of creatine and protein, um, like whatever I'm taking, that doesn't mean that you should be taking it as well.
Right, right. More people need to hear that.
Yes.
Well, this is good. I love talking confidence. And if you guys have questions about confidence or what ways do you instill confidence, like we'd love to hear it. You can drop it below. Anything else you want to add?
No, yeah, I agree. Definitely drop it. I think, especially if you're going through a hard time and you feel like you're rebuilding confidence, um, it's important to just keep believing in yourself and know that like you've gotten through your hardest days. And so you'll get through this as well.
Oh, yes. Very good one. Yeah. So I think that's it. We'll probably do this again. But if you even have something you want us to talk about that we haven't talked about ever, which we hope is our first one together, I'm more than happy to talk about really anything. I know you, Justine, talk about a lot of stuff that I haven't yet, so maybe we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about anything.
Oh, God, good talk. All right, well, I'll talk to you guys later and have a great day.
Bye.